I'm probably going to pronounce this very incorrectly. Niyanth. He, him from India is an agnostic atheist but wants to talk about veganism and
Sure.
says that veganism is an animal rights movement. Okay. Hey, can you hear us? Mm, I don't think we can hear yet. Hopefully, we get that solved pretty soon. Um, I mean, I do have to agree. I think that there's differences between the terms. While we wait for the caller to come in, voice, there's a big difference between veganism and a plant-based diet. And veganism is definitely an animal rights
Human
movement.
animal.
Oh, hi. How are
Hello.
you? Okay, we
Yeah.
can hear you now.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, you are right about it. There is a big difference between animal rights and a plant-based diet. So I want to talk about veganism from more of a rather philosophical aspect, because what I take veganism to be is people have their own core values, right? For example, if you take normative ethics, people are utilitarians or deontologists, stuff like that, blah blah blah. They have their own values, sentience, whatnot. When you apply those core values, you arrive at applied ethics, like what you're talking about, like abortion ethics or ethics on war or feminism, the LGBTQ movement. They're all applied ethical values. So is veganism. So what I take veganism to be is it's an extension of human rights. That I don't find a morally relevant difference between human animals and non-human animals that justifies farming animals but not farming humans, and therefore I'm vegan.
Mm-hmm.
That's my premise. What would
Yeah.
you think about that?
I think it's a defensible position. I think that you then begin to have to kind of quantify the degree of sentience, right? Is a human sentience worth the same as a dog? Is that worth the same as a termite? Is that right? You know what I mean? Like, because there's a lot of different kinds of animals, and do we assign all of them equal value? But I definitely like. I eat meat, but I try to do it as ethically as possible. I do not like factory farming is hugely unethical. I do not want to eat meat from an animal that was tortured and mistreated. I try my best to do like free range and everything. And then you can go all the way to like to show that it's not really about eating meat or not. Like if an animal died of natural causes, if I was to eat that, I don't think that's unethical at all. That's just using resources that are around me. But to kill an animal, to slaughter an animal, I agree with you on that. And then certainly the way that we do factory farming and torture animals in mass numbers is hugely unethical. So yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, obviously.
There's something you mentioned about the level of sentience. That's actually a really good point. Humans probably sentience. I take sentience to be the ability to have a unique experience. So, for example, you and me probably have different experiences. Maybe you probably, when you look at a movie, when you watch a movie like maybe Interstellar or something like that, your experience might be very different based on your upbringing. Whereas my experience might be a little more mind blowing. Yours might be more about, hey, well, I didn't like that coloring aspect. So you have a different quality of experience, and so do I. So similarly, we do have, yes, animals probably have a different level of sentience, a different quality of sentience. But at the same time, if let's say I'm not very convinced of the sentience of insects, by the way. But keeping that aside, since you mentioned
me
termites,
neither. I
but
agree.
keeping that aside, if I were to find
Yeah.
at the level of the sentience of animals, would we find it permissible to then farm those humans?
Sorry, say that again. You're a little quiet. I think I missed it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
same.
I was going to ask you. So if I were to hypothetically create humans who have the sentience, who have the level of sentience or the quality of sentience of animals, would you then find it permissible to farm these humans?
Right. If we engineered humans that were as dumb as cows, could we raise and slaughter them for meat?
Exactly.
I mean,
Well, there
kind of.
already are.
Yeah,
Okay, that was a joke. All right, that was a joke. But no, I think the point that you're trying to make is I've had a conversation about this before with somebody, and the question that this person was asking was, for example, if you have somebody who has cognitive disabilities, or is in a medically induced coma, or due to, I don't know, brain injury or something like that, will it be ethical to eat
kill
that
them.
person, right?
Oh, eat,
To kill
yeah.
them, to eat, yeah. And yeah, I think that's definitely something that I don't think anybody has an answer to that right now. I think that is something that's definitely, we will immediately say is immoral because it's another human being. At all
Right.
species,
Okay.
all
So
species, including non-human animals, want their own, or I guess want may not be the right
Yeah.
word, are inclined, are naturally
If we're
support their own species survival.
Yeah, there's the food chain exists, right? If we're looking at it from the perspective of survival, then it's defensible, but you have to go back quite in time, quite like eating an animal to survive has very little to do with modern practices of factory farming.
Agree.
It's just not the same
Absolutely.
thing. So,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of agree. So we kind of went through how you mentioned if there was a human who had a cognitive disability, we wouldn't farm that human because regardless they are of our species. So we have arrived at the point where we said species is that symmetry breaker. The fact that they are human is I would value them is what you're saying, and I like that answer of yours. So maybe let me ask you a different hypothetical. Maybe it's a slightly it's a hype which maybe might not happen. Let's say I'm scanning a few beings that are walking on the footpath. I'm just scanning random people, and I scan this person. I see, wait a second, you aren't human. You're actually Kryptonian, right? It's just a random. They're from the species of Superman, right? So they're Kryptonian. But they're not human anymore. But they walk, talk, look like a human. So would you find it then permissible to farm this Kryptonian species? But because they aren't human, right?
Well, if we're going by sentience as the metric, then certainly not, because they're probably even more more smarter than us even. So yeah,
You can't just really go by looks.
To me, it's like if we're looking on this kind of a sliding scale here, like I think all mammals qualify. Like I think killing any mammal is immoral. But I think that swatting, killing a mosquito is not. So I don't know where, I don't know where we meet in the middle. I'm not sure which organism we say is that's still okay. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why we're. Yeah, sorry, there's a bit of a delay. Keep going. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with the mosquito point, right? So when a mosquito is attacking you, you have every right to defend yourself. Just like when a human attacks you, you have every right to defend yourself. So when I said veganism is an extension of human rights for me, I'm going to treat the animals like the way I treat a trait equalized human. What I mean by trait equalized human is when I'm equating the traits of a human and an animal, what human I arrive at, the way I would treat that human, I would treat animals as well. So when if an animal attacks me, I'll kill the animal. When a human attacks me, if the only option I have to kill the human, I will kill the human. Similarly, if I'm growing crops and animals are destroying my crops, and the only option I have to do is to kill these animals, I will. I have the right to protect my property. Same thing with humans. Humans are encroaching my property and they're destroying my property. If the only option I have is to kill them, I will kill them. So I'm being consistent with my framework here, and I take veganism to be an extension of human rights that way, where I'm equating the traits of humans and animals, and I'm going to treat the animal like the way I treat the human. So going back to that Superman hypothetical, you said that you wouldn't farm Superman, even though he is not from our species, right? Because you use sentience. You said if we are using sentience as a metric.
Yeah.
So what would sentience be your core value system then?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to be clear, I'm saying that we shouldn't even do it to cows. I mean, I don't think that we should be mass slaughtering cows. I don't like that either. Early in the episode, we were talking about clean meats and ideally one day, eating animal muscle tissue that was never part of a sentient organism. But yeah.
1000% lab-grown meat, 100% for it. Yeah.
But I think that like nothing you're saying is shocking at all. But I think that the reason it's not shocking is that we are both, agnostic / atheist or somewhere in that. The only, I think people who would be shocked by what you're saying are people who believe that we are the special creation of a deity that looks like us and wants us to have dominion over all of his other creations. Right? You have to have a fundamentalist ideology to not
Agree.
to not agree with what you're saying. I mean, when I eat cows or lamb or whatever, or chicken or whatever, I concede that I'm not acting in the utmost ethical way that I could be. It would be better to not eat that. But I want to eat that, so I
Absolutely.
do. Mhm.
But it's just like we were talking
the way
about
I
the
used to
phones, right? We know there are ethical implications to so many of the choices
Yep.
that we make,
And I just
including I can't recycle because of my situation, right? And that's an unethical choice that I make every single day.
mhm.
So we can't all be perfect. Like, we try the best we can. Yeah, I'm all for veganism, by the way. I'm a very big advocate. I speak a lot about veganism on my own channel. So
It's awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think both of you align with veganism, and I do hope that both of you continue to speak about veganism and take more steps towards being vegan. And yeah, so you also mentioned about how religious people who probably have a belief that we have a dominion over animals. And usually the way I tackle that is asking them the same question, like similar question like I was asking you. If they said, well, if they derive all their values from what God says, then I can ask them a hypothetical. If God said it was permissible to farm humans, would you then find it permissible to do so?
Mhm.
And usually some people bite the bullet and be like, yes, I do think it's permissible to do so. If, well, whatever God says goes for me. Well, if God said it's completely fine to, forcibly breed without the consent, humans, babies, etc., they
Right.
think it's permissible. So,
and it does, in fact. The Bible instructs us on how to properly acquire and treat slaves. So
Right,
it's
yeah.
a perfectly valid question.
yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Nia, thank you so much for the call. We have 2 more calls that we would love to take. But
Absolutely.
totally appreciate, and I always enjoy talking about veganism. So yeah, call back
Yeah.
next time.
Thanks for calling.
We'd love to have
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
having me. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So the next one is Nathan, him, from Arizona. He's an atheist as well, but he says that you and I, Dave, are attacking Christians by minimizing what the pro-life position is when we were speaking about abortion earlier. So that should be interesting. All right. Oh, bummer. It says the call drop. All right. Never mind. Well, that's a bummer because that was an interesting one. So do we have the next one? Let's see if the crew has the next call, which was Louis. Him. He's also an atheist from the US. I don't know what state. And the question is, do we have justifications to say that humans should have certain moral positions? All right.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Hey,
Howdy. Yep.
yeah. How are you doing, Louis?
I'm doing great. Yeah. So that last call was really interesting. I did miss some of it because I was in the queue and speaking to the interviewee or interviewer. Yeah. So my question has to do with whether we can have like a justification to say that humans should have a particular grounding for human morality, and if not, can it be reasonable to say that one grounding is like more reasonable to have than another grounding?
I mean, I think that anything based on archaic religious doctrine is not reasonable. And then personally, I just like I hear like kind of utilitarian stuff, and I'm like, well, that seems the most reasonable to me. I'm not like a super philosophy guy, so I kind of don't like revel in these arguments too much. But to me, like murdering people, it's hard for me to wrap my head around a system of morality that wouldn't find that abhorrent, right? And then you just extend that, just whatever harms people a lot should be universally agreed upon to be immoral. Obviously there's gonna be a lot of gray area that comes out of that, but I don't know. That's as simple as I can put it, I think.
Yeah, for me, I guess I'll answer the question as well. Yeah, thanks. So I think that the justification I can see for humans holding specific moral values is that we all want what is best for ourselves, right? And in wanting what is best for ourselves, we often want the same for others, for the people that we love, for the people that we care about. And that can extend not to just our immediate, bubble of like your kids, your parents, and your partner. It extends to other people, because we have brain chemicals that make us care about others for whatever reason, right? And I don't know. I think that's the justification that we can have, wanting better for other human beings, because other human beings having good lives will in turn mean we are having good lives.
Yeah, I think both of those are fair conclusions, and you talked about harm, and I think that actually, because it also ties into what I thought the previous caller from India, who had made some really interesting points. I think that kind of ties into what he was saying about sentience, right? Because harm, right? I think that harm, one has to be a sentient organism to experience, like have these subjective experiences of harm. And so do you think that we could say that sentience may be a reasonable grounding, or maybe the most reasonable grounding for how we assess whether a behavior that we have is like moral or not? Because sentient beings can experience harm.
I think so, because I mean, let's take it all the way to the basal level. We all murder billions of bacteria every single day. Every time you wash your hands, you're killing bacteria. Nobody thinks twice about it. Even super religious people who wouldn't hurt a fly, right? We're all murdering microorganisms constantly. They're alive, you know what I mean? And then start going up the ladder. Most of us would, I think some people might not kill a fly, but most of us would kill a fly without thinking twice about it, or a small spider or something. And then we get to the point, most of us would agree that, murdering people obviously is not good, but then even a dog or a horse or something, it's not cool to do that. So we're clearly delineating a spectrum of sentience, I think is probably the right word to describe it.
Yeah, I think so too. And go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna say that there is. I've had really great conversations with this other content creator, Richard Jelliver, and he's a philosopher and loves to talk about consciousness. And we both really enjoyed having these conversations. And we've talked about animal consciousness and what it means to be a sentient being. And earlier during the vegan conversation, we were talking about different levels of sentience. And I think it would be really, really important to have people who understand animal brains and the way that they experience the world in the conversations about consciousness, because it will definitely help us. Consciousness and sentience are just, it's a very, very, very similar conversation that you're going to end up having. And humans can't understand what it's like to be a bat. We just can't. And a bat more than likely cannot understand what it's like to be a human. So until we study all of these things, we're always going to come up with the question, well, at what level do we consider the harm that we are causing this animal? Is it the same level of harm that we are causing a human being, that we are causing a fungus or a bacteria, right? Like where is that line that we are going to draw of consciousness and sentience? And
Yeah, no, those are great points actually, and I think that of course you probably would agree with me that living doesn't necessarily equal sentient, right? Because there's living organisms that don't display what I think that any of us would recognize as sentience, right? You described like bacteria and stuff like that, and I think we could probably all agree on that. Now there are two models of like assessing whether organisms are sentient. I'm not entirely familiar with them. I know there's other people who are more familiar with those two different models, but I don't think we necessarily need like experts to necessarily determine like who may or may not be sentient. And when I say who, I'm talking about any organism that that exhibits characteristics like humans, where we would say that a human is sentient. And so I think that we can make these assessments ourselves in general, and I think it's important, right? Because in our daily activities, we may actually be causing like unjustified harm or needless harm to individuals or beings who are sentient, and when we don't necessarily have to, right? And so I think it's important that even if we don't have experts to discuss these things, that we should have these discussions amongst ourselves anyway, because at the end of every fork of animal flesh, there's a victim at the end of that fork.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think this is why I myself continue to have these conversations. I see Chase Avier is in the chat, and he's a great vegan activist, and he's been on my show before. We talk about this topic, and so I do think awareness is the most important thing we can do. Just talk about it, even if it doesn't convert the next person to you. It's just just talking about it.
I think it's the main criterion is behavioral complexity, right? Does an organism display emotional states? I mean, it's like if you go look at a bacterium engaging in like chemotaxis, right? It moves in a direction. This is a very rigidly mechanistic thing, right? The nutrient interacts with a receptor, and that causes the flagellum to rotate. So it's totally blind, right? And I think that you can look at a grasshopper or something like that in kind of the same way. It's obviously dramatically more complex. It's a multicellular organism, but I don't think that grasshopper is thinking thoughts. You know what I mean? But a dog definitely is thinking thoughts. A cow is too, a horse is too, a whale is. It's the complexity of behavior, the unpredictability of behavior, because it's based on some kind of cognizance and reflection and decision making and things like that. I think that's probably the main criterion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that I agree. I think that emotions does. I think that's one indicator that we can look at this to say whether an organism likely has sentience or not. Now, of course, the other issue with that is that are we doing our best to observe? Let's say grasshopper. You took an example of a grasshopper. Like, I don't know if a grasshopper is sentient. It certainly seems possible. They have a brain. As far as I understand, the nervous system is that brain complex enough to have the similar types of processing. But I guess another thing to think about is, are we observing, as acutely as we should be, organisms that we interact with, let's say, on a very regular basis, right? Like, for example, chickens or fish, right? I think it seems pretty clear to me that the science kind of confirms that they are sentient, right? And these are animals that are unfortunately routinely, harmed for what sometimes or probably most often turns out to be, for non-necessary reasons,
Yeah,
fish for me would be kind of that one on the line where I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure if fish are sentient or not. Yeah.
There have been studies. Yeah, I can't really get into that right now because we are about 2 minutes from the end of the show. So we're gonna have to let you go, Louis. But this conversation was great. We'll appreciate the question, and I think we are definitely in agreement with you that there need to be more conversations and more studies and more science about this.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking this call and for your really intelligent engagement on this. I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for calling, and hope you'll call back some other time. Whenever I'm on, you can call and talk about veganism with me. Appreciate you.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
So, okay. So we are going to, in a minute, be ending up the show. Any words of wisdom, Dave, you have for?
No, that was cool. We ended up talking about we were going to talk about the universe being designed, and we end up talking about veganism quite a lot. But it's an interesting topic to me because I am not vegan, but it's a better I would be a better person if I was vegan. I just don't want to do it. But I'm definitely not going to sit here and argue with people like, no, veganism is dumb. Like, no, it's the better
That's
thing
why
to do.
I do eat vegan, but I mostly don't label myself vegan because I struggle with I'm probably not doing it all the way correctly. Like I probably eat something with honey when I didn't even notice or even bother to read the label or something like that. But I do agree that it is, and both for improving animal well-being and human well-being. But anyways, maybe next time that we are here, we can continue the conversation.